Good morning and good afternoon, STEM class, and to anyone who decided to watch this video. And in this video, we are going to learn about someone who has done more than almost everyone alive to get people excited about the universe. That person's name is Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is an astrophysicist, which means his studies are in the physics of stars, galaxies, and the cosmos. He is also the director of one of the most famous planetariums in the world, and he's one of the most recognized scientists on the planet today. Here's a fun fact to kick things off. Neil deGrasse Tyson was born in October 1958, the exact same month and year that NASA was formed. It's like the universe had a plan for him one day. He grew up in New York City, attended public schools in the Bronx, and spent his childhood doing something many of you might relate to: staring up at night at the night sky and wondering what was out there. Let's find out how that curiosity turned into a career that has inspired millions of people around the world. Neil deGrasse Tyson's story starts with one unforgettable moment. When he was just 9 years old, he visited the Hayden Planetarium at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Looking up at the simulated night sky on the domed ceiling, the universe reached out and grabbed him. From that day on, he was hooked. Because he lived in an apartment building in the Bronx, he couldn't walk out to a dark field and stargaze, so he went on the roof. With binoculars, he pointed himself at the moon and the stars from his rooftop in the middle of the city. When he was 12, his father gave him a telescope, and his passion grew into something unstoppable. In high school, he was the captain of the wrestling team and the editor in chief of the Physical Science Journal. Athlete and scientist at the same time. That's crazy. And here's one of the more amazing details: the legendary astronomer Carl Sagan, who created the original Cosmos TV series, personally wrote Neil a letter and invited him to visit Cornell University when Neil was still a teenager. That kind of encouragement from a hero stuck with him his entire life. After high school, Neil deGrasse Tyson set off on one of the most impressive academic journeys in science. He went to Harvard University and earned a bachelor's degree in physics. That was in 1980. Then he moved to the University of Texas at Austin for a master's degree in astronomy. That was in 1983. Finally, he returned to New York, to Columbia University specifically, where he spent years working towards the highest academic degree you can earn, a PhD or a doctorate, which he finished in 1991. His doctoral dissertation, the major research paper you do to earn a PhD, focused on the chemical evolution and structure of the galactic bridge, which is the dense central region of our Milky Way galaxy. After finishing his doctorate, he spent 3 more years as a postdoctoral researcher at Princeton University, one of the top science universities in the world. In total, he studied at 4 elite universities across 15 years. His path shows that big dreams require serious preparation and sustained commitment. Let's look at Dr. Tyson's research. His professional focus has been in three connected areas. First, stellar evolution, the study of how stars are born out of clouds of gas and dust, and how they live for millions or billions of years, and how they eventually die. Sometimes, when a really massive star dies, it explodes in a spectacular blast called a supernova. Second, galactic structure, the study of how galaxies like our Milky Way are shaped and organized. His doctoral dissertation focused on the galactic bulge, which is the dense, bright ball shaped center of spiral galaxies like ours. Third, dwarf galaxies, small galaxies that orbit larger ones. In 1988, while still a graduate student, he co authored a scientific paper and it was published in the Astrophysical Journal. It was about bursting dwarf galaxies. It studied how small galaxies rapidly form from stars. He did this work using data from the Hubble telescope and observations spanning from California to Chile. In 1994, Tyson joined the Hayden Planetarium as a staff scientist, and just 2 years later, in 1996, he became the director, the youngest person in the planetarium's history to hold that title. As a director, he took on a massive challenge, completely rebuilding the planetarium from the ground up. He helped design the new facility and helped raise funds needed for the $210 million construction. The new Hayden Planetarium opened in the year 2000 and is now considered one of the most advanced science centers anywhere in the world. But here's the decision that made him famous, or infamous, depending on who you ask. During the renovation, he decided not to display Pluto with the eight classical planets. Instead, he placed it alongside similar icy objects in the outer system called the Kuiper Belt objects, or Kuiper, however you want to pronounce that. The public was not happy. Children wrote him angry letters. Some people staged mocking protests outside the planetarium, but Tyson stood by the science. 6 years later, in 2006, the International Astronomical Union, a body that classifies space objects, agreed with him and officially declared Pluto a dwarf planet. The solar system now has eight planets, and Tyson was correct. Tyson's expertise and communication skills caught the attention of the United States government. In 2001, President George W. Bush appointed him to a 12-member commission to study the future of American aerospace industry. Their 2002 report gave Congress recommendations for how to keep the U.S. strong in space exploration, transparency, and national security. 3 years later, President Bush appointed him again to a second commission called Moon, Mars, and Beyond, which laid out a roadmap for where America would go next within space. These were real policy shaping roles. In 2004, NASA awarded him the Distinguished Public Service Medal, the highest award NASA gives to someone who was not a government employee. In 2015, the National Academy of Sciences gave him the Public Welfare Medal for his extraordinary work exciting the public about science. And the International Astronomical Union honored him by naming an asteroid after him, asteroid 13123 Tyson. There is literally a space rock with his name on it orbiting our sun right now. So, where does Neil deGrasse Tyson stand apart from almost every other scientist alive today? Well, he has an extraordinary ability to take the most mind bending ideas in the universe and explain them in a way that anyone can understand and get excited about it. Starting in 1995, he wrote a monthly column for Natural History magazine called Universe, making professional astrophysics accessible to ordinary readers. From 2006 to 2011, he hosted Nova Science Show on PBS, one of the most respected science programs on television. Then came his biggest moment. In 2014, he hosted Cosmos, a space time odyssey on Fox and National Geographic. This was a reimagining of Carl Sagan's legendary 1980 series and was watched by an estimated 135 million people worldwide. That is more people than watch most of the Super Bowls. That's crazy. Since 2009, he hosted the Star Talk podcast and TV show, blending science with comedy and celebrity culture to reach audiences who might not otherwise tune into science. He has also written over 18 books, several of which became bestsellers. Not bad for a kid from the Bronx with binoculars on a rooftop. Now, let's connect Tyson's research directly to physical science concepts that you're learning either in science class, in STEM, or will be learning. His work on stellar evolution tells us how our own sun works and what will eventually happen to it. Billions of years from now, the sun will run out of hydrogen fuel, expand into a massive red giant, then collapse into a small, dense white dwarf. That entire life story is described by the same science Tyson spent his career studying. And here's something that's mind blowing. Tyson loves to talk about this. When giant stars die in supernova explosions, they scatter heavy elements into space, elements like carbon, iron, and oxygen. These elements eventually become part of a new solar system, new planets, and new life. That means the atoms in your body were forged inside a star that exploded billions of years ago, if you believe those things. At least Tyson's, that's what he says. We are all stardust, according to him. Understanding the way that the Milky Way structure helps science really helps map out what they call dark matter and understand how gravity holds galaxies together. All right, those are key questions in modern physics. Additionally, his work on dwarf galaxies is also extended by the James Webb Space Telescope, which launched in 2021 and is sending back images from the earliest galaxies ever observed, directly building on the observational astrophysics that Tyson pioneered. The classification science behind Pluto's decision is now helping astronomers categorize more than 5,000 exoplanets discovered around other stars. So that makes up an intriguing question that you can think to yourself: what makes a planet a planet? And here's another thing to think about. Is making science exciting and understandable for the public a real contribution? Some people say, yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson has argued his entire life that science literacy, in other words, people's ability to understand and think scientifically, is essential to a healthy society. He once said, I see science literacy as a kind of vaccine against charlatans who would try to exploit your ignorance. When you understand how science works, you can evaluate claims, spot misinformation, and make smarter decisions. As one of the most visible African American scientists on earth, Tyson has also been a powerful role model, more specifically, showing that science has a place for everyone, regardless of where you grew up or what you look like. He was named one of Time's most 100 influential people in the world, and that was in 2007. He has received more than 27 honorary doctorate degrees from universities. In 2017, he received the Stephen Hawking Medal for Science Communication. These are not particularly trophies. They reflect a career of genuine, measurable impact on how millions of people understand the universe and how the universe works around them. Bringing everything together, Neil deGrasse Tyson grew up in a city apartment in the Bronx, staring at stars from a rooftop with binoculars. He went on to earn a doctorate in astrophysics from Columbia University, became the youngest director in the history of the Hayden Planetarium, led a $210 million renovation, advised two U.S. presidents on space policy, reclassified a planet before the rest of the scientific world caught up with the idea and the data, and brought astrophysics into the living rooms of 135 million people around the world. His research gave us real data about how stars evolve, how our Milky Way is structured, how small galaxies behave. But his lasting contribution may be the belief that science belongs to everyone, not just people with PhDs, not just people in laboratories, every curious person who is willing to look up. Neil once said, "The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it." Science isn't a matter of opinion, it's a way of discovering truth. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has spent his entire life making sure as many people as possible get a seat at that table of knowledge.